Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Thursday evening. Hope everybody is having a fantastic week so far and that you're ready to get into a conversation about a report that came out yesterday around Derrick Henry and a potential contract extension that the Titans may or may not be open to. We will discuss at length together over the course of this evening's show what Jeremy Fowler had to say about Derrick Henry and why this is a situation that may or may not come to fruition, and honestly, why I don't think it makes any damn sense at all. We'll talk about how we think Derrick Henry's career with the Titans is going to play out and who lasts longer here in Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill or Derrick Henry, because it's probably a much closer conversation than many of you think. A lot of ground to cover on this Thursday night, so I hope you guys are ready to do it. We're excited to have you in, as always, and looking forward to another great show together. Before we get this thing off and rolling, though, I need you guys to do me the solid of sharing this show. If you are on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, please do us the courtesy of subscribing to the A to Z Sports channel, where you can get our live stream coverage 7 days a week and multiple times a day. If you are on Twitter, please retweet the show. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And now that more of you are here, we can go ahead and get the primetime show off and rolling on a Thursday night. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time. I'm your host, Buck Rising, if you're new to the show, and I'm proud as always to be presented to you by our friends at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is the place that you go since 1983 for quality American-made Ford vehicles and award-winning customer service. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Of course, you know that the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans, the Nashville Predators, and of anybody who knows what they're doing when it comes to the intel edge in the middle Tennessee real estate market. That is the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress with only the intel that the Ashton team can provide to you. GaryAshton.com is where you go. So there was a report from Jeremy Fowler, and I know Austin and Zach talked about it this morning. To be completely honest with you, I should have probably done this last night, but I had gotten caught up in what we had talked about on the install yesterday with Greg Cosell, and I thought that was more top of mind for me. But this Derrick story is really interesting for a number of reasons. So if you are unaware of what has been going on or what was discussed, it's probably because this article by Jeremy Fowler was behind a paywall at ESPN, and I know how many people feel about paywalls, so I'm going to do the dirty work for you. Jeremy Fowler put together an NFL contract update notebook about various situations to watch around the league, and it's everything from Lamar Jackson to Hunter Renfrow. Jeffrey Simmons is discussed as kind of where things stand with him on the verge of another season and a fifth-year option potentially that the Titans will I already have, I believe, pick up to ensure that Jeff maintains his status as their best defensive player on the football team. And then there's a section of the column that's just titled Wild Cards. And the first name at the top of this is Derrick Henry, which I thought was pretty interesting. So it notes here that Derrick is a free agent in 2024, so 2 years left on his current contract. And what Jeremy writes is that running backs typically don't get paid early, but I'm hearing the Titans are at least open to a possible new deal with Henry. Henry has a cap hit of $15 million this year and $15.5 next year. The Titans could lessen those two cap hits by extending him by a year or two. They could build in escape hatches if Henry declines in his 30s, but right now Henry is still considered the game's top back. So that's what Fowler writes, and I thought that interesting for a number of reasons. One, well, I guess I should probably ask you guys how you feel about that first and foremost. Let's do your Two Rivers Ford take to start things off on a Thursday night. Fair or foul, a contract extension for Derrick Henry this year. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. That is always the case. We're grateful for Two Rivers who make this feature possible each and every evening. Fair or foul, an extension for Derrick Henry this year with 2 years left on his deal. Let me know how you feel about the circumstance, how you feel about the situation. Give me your opinion. It's quite simple. It can be fair, it can be foul. And if you would like to provide a deeper, in-depth explanation as to why you feel some type of way about it, you're more than welcome to do that too. You can do that, and I will do that with you right after I tell you about the people who make the Two Rivers Ford take possible. That is, of course, Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford has been doing business in Middle Tennessee since 1983. That's nearly 40 years in the Nashville area, providing exceptional customer service, in fact, award-winning customer service, and quality American-made Ford vehicles. Now, when it comes to Two Rivers Ford, you know that you can build your own Ford if you so choose, just like I did. I built my own 2022 Ford Explorer XLT. I got all the customizable accessories that I wanted, and I got the exact color that I wanted. Two Rivers Ford is the place that you go, not just for the Built For You program, but for certified pre-owned vehicles. You can get a pre-owned vehicle from Two Rivers Ford because, first of all, Two Rivers Ford is a trusted, locally owned dealership that's been around since 1983. And if you're buying a pre-owned vehicle, you want to know you're buying it from someone who is honest and reputable and someone who knows how to do business with integrity. That's Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So, what's the fair or foul? What do you feel about the Derrick Henry, the idea of a Derrick Henry contract extension? Steve Roberts exclaims, extension? Why would you not? Geez. Well, there's a great many reasons why you would not do it. And let me, in fact, there are vastly more reasons why you would not do it. There are two reasons why you would. Let me go through the reasons why you would first and foremost. And because that's, frankly, that's the shorter side of the argument. So you would sign Derrick Henry to an extension for emotional purposes. Now, that's not necessarily good business. And I don't know that in fact, I do know that it would not be good business to attach too much emotions to fan favorite, organization favorite, one of the most famous players in the sport right now. The emotional attachment that Derrick Henry has, the brand name, the recognition, the star power, the jersey sales, all these different things that Derrick Henry's star power generates revenue for would continue to carry over until such time as, it's clear and obvious that he's in decline, as all football players end up doing. Secondarily, and probably most likely, why they would extend Derrick Henry this year is because they're looking to add another piece to their roster. And in extending Derrick, you could bring down the cap hit this year, create more cap space, other than the very, very tight to the cap that you are right now, even as we're still waiting for the $9 million that they'll get back post June 1st, which, by the way, is coming up because of the Julio Jones situation. So you could free up a little cap space, whether you're exploring a trade that would acquire a player who's already on a contract that would require not just a cap hit this year, but in future seasons. Or you're still looking at the free agent market and saying, yeah, instead of moving around, instead of restructuring, which puts the team on the hook, like they are with Ryan Tannehill this year. Well, you could do that with Derrick Henry, still kind of make it reasonable for you, continue to pay Derrick Henry what Derrick Henry thinks he's worth, and, make sure that Derrick Henry is a part of the franchise for years to come. Now, those all may sound like great reasons, and to a degree, they're not bad reasons by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not exactly good business decisions, right? What do we know about running backs? And listen, you guys know how loud I was and how loud wrong I was. I'm always happy to admit when I'm wrong. I did not think that it was good business to give Derrick a second contract. Now, obviously, I was foolish because, I had no way of knowing that Derrick is going to be the exception to the rule, right? Where all these other running backs are falling apart at the seams. Zeke, McCaffrey, McCaffrey, I think, has only played in like 13 games. It may not even be a number that high. Lucas, my radio producer, did the numbers on it since Christian McCaffrey signed that extension. It's like it is a really, really small number of games that Christian McCaffrey has been available for the Carolina Panthers. But we know that Derrick's different, right? Derrick is physically built different. He's athletically different. He's unprecedented, right? He's a record-setting football player, and he's the best pure running back in the sport, right? So all these different things combine to prove that Derrick Henry was well worth the contract extension that they ended up giving him. Now, as far as this, because Mark Jones says, be prepared to look foolish again. It's entirely possible, but here's the thing, Mark, because like I understand you probably love Derrick Henry, right? And you should absolutely love Derrick Henry. My position on this is not because I dislike Derrick Henry. In fact, quite the opposite. It's been my great pleasure to be able to cover what looked like up until he got hurt this year, what looked like it was on the trajectory of a Hall of Fame player, right? That's been my great fortune to have that as a part of the team that I've covered. Not everybody gets that, and I've been very, very fortunate to witness literal history in the NFL by covering Derrick Henry. So none of this comes from a personal place. Um, but I may end up looking foolish again, Mark, to your point. But the thing about this is at some point I'm going to be right. And it's not like I'm rooting for that. It's just I'm playing the odds, right? Derrick Henry is a running back. Derrick Henry is going to be 29 years old. Derrick Henry is coming off a substantial foot injury and may go on to have many, many more successful years in the NFL, while also already having done the best work that Derrick Henry will do throughout the course of his career. There's a reason that only 8 running backs, including Derrick, have eclipsed the 2,000-yard mark. It's damn hard to do physically. It is physically difficult to do. It is so hard on your body, especially the way that they use Derrick Henry since Mike Vrabel became the head coach. Derrick Henry leads the league in carries since 2018 by a substantial margin, and by a substantial margin while missing half of a year, right? Half of a season. Derrick's the thing that has made Derrick so impressive is that he can sustain. He continues to sustain. And there's plenty of reasons to think that even as things go, as Derrick ages and you start to see the thing that happens to any professional athlete, right? The athletic gifts start to fade. Now, whether they fade gradually or they fade drastically, like, for example, let's just take Peyton Manning, right? Peyton Manning went from, I don't know if it was the next year from Peyton breaking the single season touchdown record, but then going on to be benched for Brock Osweiler, still winning the Super Bowl, but doing it because he had an incredible defense at his back. You look at Peyton Manning, and that's as clear and obvious an example of the drop-off that hits NFL athletes. And that's at a position where they don't take nearly the damage that the running backs do. So I'm not saying this because I have any ill will towards Derrick Henry or because I don't. It's just a business decision as far as I'm concerned, that I look at this and I say, okay, at some point, Derrick is going to be less special than he was. He can still be special. He can still be effective. Hell, he's still a giant human being. And you put him inside the 20-yard line, and he's still going to find a way to find the end zone. He doesn't need to be breaking 60 and 70-yard touchdowns to be an effective weapon for the Tennessee Titans in the offense, right? But the thing that has allowed the Tennessee Titans to play football the way that they do is because their explosive plays, many of them come off the back and the feet of Derrick Henry, right? You feel the energy in the stadium when he gets the ball. And when he makes it past the defensive line, because you see the energy, people understand that Derrick Henry, at any point, you've seen him break 60, 70, 80, 90, 99-yard rushing touchdowns. And while that may be sustainable in the immediate future, at some point it's going to change, right? And I think we all acknowledge that, even if you are the most blind of homers around Derrick Henry. Now, Billy Jordan does the thing that I despise, which is say, bro, Tom Brady is damn near 45 years old and still winning championships. Yes, you're right, Billy. You found the one. Well, how old was Peyton? I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but how old was Peyton Manning when he retired? Um, I need to look this up. Peyton Manning's age at retirement. Yeah, Peyton was just turning 40, and Brady has gone 5 years beyond that. No player in the history of the sport has ever done that, Billy. Like, you found the one guy across over 100 years of professional football. It's a completely and totally asinine argument to make. He plays quarterback. The rules have changed to keep the quarterbacks upright more than they have ever been. And Tom Brady takes care of his body in a way literally no other professional athlete, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, whatever you got, Tom Brady does it better than all of them. So yes, you can get in there and think that you're the smartest person in the room by saying, bro, Tom Brady is damn near 45 years old and still winning championships. And you can also show your ass by saying that because it's the one example. It's just the one. There's a reason he's the greatest of all time because he's physically outlasting all of these other mother bleepers, right? It's such a dumb argument, Billy. And I'm not mad at you about it. Somebody was going to do it. It just so happened to be you. So like, I'm looking at this and I'm saying it's really, really a base level argument when that's the approach that you're going to take. I wonder, Henry is 28, says Jimbo. Yes, but he will be 29 during the season. EA points out Brady doesn't get hit on every play, nor does he carry the ball 30 plus times per game. Again, the thing that makes Derrick Henry insane is that he was averaging 29 touches, over 29 touches by the time he got hurt last year. They had upped his workload. Todd Downing, while they still tried to figure things out offensively, Todd Downing said, hey, you know what still works? Derrick Henry for 3 yards. Derrick Henry for 2.5 yards. Okay, Derrick Henry for a tackle for loss, but Derrick's going to get 5 back on the next play. Derrick, and even started throwing him the ball more this year just to get the guy out in space rather than having an entire defense cave in on him every play because everybody knows the ball is going to Derrick Henry, right? That's the whole thing about the Titans is that you know what they're going to do. The whole damn league knows what they're going to do, and you can't stop it anyway, or at least you haven't been able to until recently, where Derrick Henry's efficiency numbers really did take a dip even as he was taking on this workload and still producing. To his credit, there were still 60-yard runs in overtime to help win the game against Seattle, right? There's still highlight plays against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. Derrick Henry could come back and have a Pro Bowl, potentially all-pro year, right? This year, and still it's going to continue to be a question. Okay, how much longer can it last? It's just the nature of the job that he does. And I don't know why that's so hard for people to comprehend. But yeah, Derrick Henry, fair or foul, I think it would be foul to give him an extension with 2 years left on his deal because it makes zero sense to. Financially, you have no guaranteed money left on Derrick Henry. You can get out from that contract at any point. If Derrick doesn't rebound the way that you hope that he rebounds, if you're a Titans fan, well, then you already have Hassan Haskins on the roster, who's not Darrington Evans. He's not coming in as a curve or a changeup for Derrick Henry. No, he runs the style that you want to run in this offense. The same thing that made Deontay Foreman successful, except he doesn't cost $2 million, right? They've already drafted the guy that is potentially going to be the next running back for the Tennessee Titans should Derrick falter at any point in the near future. Now, whether he does or not is an entire...
He's sitting with my wife right now and my kids. That poor guy.
Derrick Henry, regardless of Denise Moore says, Josh Norman, get you some. It's one of Mike Keith's finest moments on the mic, and Mike Keith has had many great moments while calling Titans games. It's been my great pleasure to cover every game of Derrick Henry's career, and it's gone from Derrick Henry on the trade block. How many? I can't physically see you guys, so when I say something like, raise your hand if you remember in 2018 when they were trying to shop Derrick Henry for a second round pick. It's come a long way from then, right? I was sitting in the press box, Mike Vrabel's first season, when against the New England Patriots, before they went on to upset the New England Patriots, David Fluellen was getting snaps ahead of Derrick Henry in that game, right? It's come so far, and it's such a credit to Derrick and his work ethic, and for the Titans for sticking with him and finding ways to make it work, and for Arthur Smith figuring it out early on in the 2019 season, about halfway through. It's a really, really delicate balance, right? And listen, Some of you guys are going to be upset about that. I fault you zero. I fault you zero for being upset with me for even bringing up the idea that Derrick Henry, who has been nothing but superhuman, may at some point be mortal, right? Like I'm not gonna try and tell you guys how to feel about this circumstance. He is the best thing to happen to your franchise in so damn long, right? He is your most important piece of this era of Titans football from 2018 up until the present. It's been the Derrick Henry show. And so while there's going to be a lot of strong feelings around this stuff, it is something that people can look at, and you guys have already experienced, right? You went through it with Eddie George, and Eddie George being less special at the end. You went through it with Chris Johnson, and Chris Johnson being unlike anything you had seen on a football field. And at some point, it changed, right? It's just so physically hard to sustain those kind of things. And I think that when you look at how these things go about, I think that Derrick is a fascinating case study because he's already exceeded any expectations that anybody could have possibly had for him, and may still go on to do great things and may end up having a Hall of Fame career. But at some point, that's going to change. And it's just a matter of how soon he does it. This year is going to answer a lot of questions, right? Because this is the year coming off the foot injury. So we're going to learn a lot about Derrick Henry. And I think when you look at the idea of how the Titans are going to utilize him, are they going to try and run him into the ground and get every dollar's worth of carries for $15 million against the cap this year and 15.5 against the cap next year and just grind this dude out in ways that may not be in his best interest? There's a lot of different factors that come into play for this. Corey D. Jackson says that Foreman contract should have happened. No, of course it shouldn't have, Corey. You drafted Hassan Haskins to do the exact same thing and play the exact same way that Deontay Foreman does, and you don't have to pay him $2 million to do it. It's such a ridiculous thing to say. You already have Derrick Henry. Why would you pay another guy $2 million who's probably not going to see the field while Derrick Henry is out there? You want to pay Deontay Foreman $2 million to sit on the bench and get 4 carries in a playoff game the way that he did in January? Of course you don't. You're going to pay Hassan Haskins a rookie deal, keep him under team control and cost-effective for longer, and hope that he can fill in at some point if you need a plan to move on from Derrick in the near future. We'll see how it goes. Long as he still gives us 1,000+ yards and makes the defense respect our run game, it actually makes it easier on Burks, Phillips, and Woods. Derrick provides a lot of value, right? He provides a lot of value. Again, nobody is disputing this. I just think to give him extra years when you're already in a really good spot with it business-wise, it doesn't make sense right now. That's the point that I think I'm trying to get across. And you can agree with that. You can disagree with that. It's entirely your prerogative at this point. Let's see. Eddie George, best back in NBA history. Montgomery Bellacat. Derrick didn't go to NBA, did he? Or Eddie didn't go to NBA, did he? That can't be true. Let's see. Colts lost the last 2 weeks. Rock is just out here after the Colts ass. Colts lost the last 2 weeks. Y'all lost to the Jags. Is there a Colts fan in the YouTube chat? Is Rock going after? God, I mean, that still remains one of the most epic collapses of any football team. You know what happened to the Phoenix Suns? I don't know how many of you are NBA fans, but like how badly the Phoenix Suns choked in Game 7. Now, at least that was in the playoffs and they had made it to a Game 7. But, I mean, they literally shit themselves on national television for all of us to see. And, for Chris Paul to be the butt of many jokes. I would relate that to what the Colts did in Week 18 against the Jacksonville Jags. There was no more epic collapse. So I don't know if there is a Colts fan in the YouTube chat fighting you guys vigorously, but Rock is here to bust him up, it would seem. Hopefully Hilliard continues to develop. He showed a lot of promise in Henry's absence. Dontrell Hilliard is a finished product. Like, continue to develop. Dontrell Hilliard, I think, has been in the league for at least 4 years at this point, right? Let me look up Dontrell Hilliard's career. Continue to develop would indicate that he's still – no, okay, so 4 years, including last season. But recall that he was out of the league in the middle of the year last year, and they just picked him up off the couch. So to continue to develop, okay, like he's only 26, he's younger than Derrick, ironically enough. But like I wouldn't count on increased productivity just because he's going to be with your team again this year. It may be that Dontrell Hilliard doesn't make it through camp, right? Because of the nature of what the running back position is. He may. We have no idea as we sit here on May the 19th, but there's a lot more there to go. TK Bullis says Titans don't owe anybody anything. Ask AJ how that went, thinking he was owed something. Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, listen, if the Titans did owe anybody anything, they would owe Derrick Henry, right? Like I'm totally realistic about this. I think people take this conversation way too seriously. But the whole situation around this deal is that Derrick Henry at some point is going to be a depreciating asset. It may have already happened. We don't know the answer to that until we see how this plays out. And honestly, you could make the argument that Derrick has earned everything he has gotten and probably should have been paid more, given the fact that he's played many more games than, let's say, Christian McCaffrey or Zeke Elliott or Alvin Kamara. He's sustainable on a second contract in ways that running backs just have not been. So let's move on before we get too bogged down in this portion of the argument. I knew that there was going to be some pushback on that, so I prepared myself adequately. But I want to know, what do you think the ideal circumstance is for Derrick Henry this year? Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch what you think the situation for Derrick Henry should look like or will look like this year, the ideal circumstance. Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We will discuss at length together right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com is where you go for your dream address without the stress and for the intel edge that only the Ashton team can provide to you. GaryAshton.com, the best in the business, and will ensure that you get your dream address without the stress. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, the official real estate agent of the Titans and the Preds, and me at GaryAshton.com. So what's the ideal circumstance for Derrick Henry? Well, I think, one, we all assume health would be the ideal circumstance for Derrick Henry to rebound. Maybe he looks a little slow out of the gate, but that's not unusual. Derrick is typically starts a little slower to the year. In fact, that's what made last year so crazy, is because they were getting everything out of Derrick that they possibly could early on in the season, and the workload was cranked up all the way out of the gate. Elo says he will be a Pro Bowler and he will crack 1,200 yards and at least 10 touchdowns and finish the season. We will see. 8 games near 1,000 yards on pace for the record doesn't seem like a decline to me. Well, I mean, Mark, he broke his foot. Like, it's not his fault that he broke his foot or that the foot broke. It's not the foot's fault that the foot broke, but like on pace for the record, he didn't get the record. I don't know why that's so hard to wrap your head around. And again, it's not like it's no one's fault. It happens, right? Like Derrick was, you're correct. Derrick was on pace to get the record, and then he didn't. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's like saying the Titans were totally capable of winning the Super Bowl last year, but they didn't win the Super Bowl. No one gives a shit if you didn't win the Super Bowl, but you got all the potential in the world, right, to win the Super Bowl. You didn't win the Super Bowl. What does it matter? Derrick Henry got to 1,000 yards, or nearly got to 1,000 yards through 8 games, had 10 touchdowns, and was on track to break the record, and then he didn't break the record. So like, what do I care about that? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean anything other than, it's something that you're going to try and use as a part of the argument. It's not relevant as in this portion of the conversation. The Poltergeist says, if anyone needs to be traded, it's Tannehill. He's got to be saying this for views. Saying what for views? That about Derrick? No, I mean, we can talk about Tannehill. In fact, we are going to talk about Derrick and Tannehill to end the show. I'm not saying it for views. I'm just saying it because it's common sense. I mean, this was the whole thing around. Now, again, it was also common sense to not pay the running back on the second contract, and common sense was negated because Derrick Henry broke the records, right? Like that's the whole part of this. But we can get to the Tannehill Henry conversation later on in the show. I mean, the ideal circumstance for Derrick Henry is for him to rebound off the foot injury, for him to continue to be a productive player. Maybe he ends his career with the Titans. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He'll be in his 30s by the time that comes around. Maybe he wants to continue to play and they can find a role that fits for him. But I think the ideal circumstance for Derrick Henry is to finish this year strong, to make a case to be on the roster in 2024, but also for them to have a succession plan in place with which to move on from Derrick Henry in case those things don't happen.
Thank you, Titans, for this amazing experience. With the 131st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Hassan Haskins, running back from Michigan.
Okay, this is the theme. Mark Ross back with me. Mike Ann with you. It's Draft Center. Round number 4. Tight end running backs are flying off the board here. You just turned to me. You said, I like Haskins.
So you talk about Hassan Haskins, big, strong, tough, gets the ball in the end zone. Who does that sound like? Derrick Henry. So when you got Derrick Henry, we know he had the injuries caught up with him a little bit last year. Devontae Freeman came in and did an admirable job. But this guy is a Tennessee running back all the way. You know, every time Michigan needed some tough yards or down on the goal line, you know, this guy got it for him. And surprisingly, for a big back, has really good hands, Mike. So you talk about talent, fitting in with a position with the team, what they do well. Hassan Haskins is a perfect Tennessee Titans running back to go with Derrick Henry. They're going to be hard to handle, these two big guys coming downhill.
Yeah, school record 20 rushing touchdowns, 4th in FBS play.
So that's Hassan Haskins, the 4th round running back out of Michigan, who the Titans drafted this year. And Jeremy says it best, right? They already are setting the table to move on. That's why they got Haskins, to see what he could be with some development. It's the same. It's not the exact same situation as Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis, because Malik Willis may not even be the backup quarterback this year, right? He may be the 3rd string guy because Woodside, they're more comfortable with how much Woodside knows of the offense, how Woodside operates mechanically, and how much institutional knowledge Woodside has. But you look at, in the same way that you guys loved, I think almost everyone here loved the idea of them drafting Malik Willis, especially when they did, because it gives you at least an opportunity to move on from Ryan Tannehill with a quarterback who's got a lot of athletic upside. Hassan Haskins is not going to be Derrick Henry. There may not be another Derrick Henry for another 10, 20 years of football, right? But they have to prepare at some point. At some point, there's going to have to be a severance. And it may be in 2 years. It may be after next year. It may be that they give him an extension and he plays 4 more years here in Tennessee. And all of those different things need to be accounted for. But you cannot be a fan of the Malik Willis situation, which in an absolute best case scenario, would he be ready by 2023? And I think it's honestly unreasonable for people to think that he will be ready by 2023. Because he is now competing for the backup quarterback job. He's not competing for the starting role. He's competing for the backup job. And he's probably not going to be. I mean, so we did I'm not going to spoil the whole 615 Sessions podcast that we did today, that will be in your podcast feeds tomorrow. It's myself, it's Jimmy Wyatt of TennesseeTitans.com, and Joe Rexroad from The Athletic. And we were talking about, Malik Willis and what we think Malik Willis is going to be this year. And what Wyatt, who works for the team, said, yeah, it's likely that, there may be games where Malik Willis isn't active. Like, he'll be on the active roster, but they may not have him active for games because Logan Woodside, in the immediate, is who they trust the most to operate the offense. So you look at this in the same way that we're talking about Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill, and really we shouldn't be talking about Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill. We should be talking about Malik Willis and Logan Woodside, whatever. You have to look at Hassan Haskins in the same light, which is just an insurance policy for if it happens to Derrick sooner than you would like it to, then you're ready for it, or at least you're trying to be ready for it. Darrynton Evans wasn't that. Darrynton Evans was supposed to be a different style of player that can give them an extra dimension in the passing game, or can be a change of pace back for Derrick Henry. No, Hassan Haskins runs a style that is similar. He does not run like Derrick Henry, but he runs a style that is similar to Derrick Henry. So it's not a change of pace back. It's an insurance policy for Derrick Henry if something was to happen there. And, knock on wood or whatever's closest to you, that nothing does happen to Derrick Henry, because you want him to be successful. Of course you do. MB says, I personally don't think the Titans are done at quarterback. Wouldn't surprise me if they double down next year, right? That's what makes and I don't know, right? We don't know that yet. But I think that's what makes the whole Malik Willis thing worth it. It's just a gamble. It's just a dice roll. Like, it's nothing. You don't have to be committed to Malik Willis because he's a third-round pick. And quarterbacks who are third-round picks, basically quarterbacks outside the first round, and there's even a lot of them that go in the first round, a lot of these dudes don't pan out. So it's a good gamble worth making, but it's not, it's not ironclad that Malik Willis is going to be the starting quarterback for the Titans for the next 5 years after Ryan Tannehill is done here. No, it's a chance worth taking. And it doesn't mean that you're married to the guy. You can continue to explore other options, as MB has pointed out. Poltergeist says, Henry carried our whole offense. I guarantee AJ would have never had the contract with the Eagles if not because of Henry. Please say something. Well, I mean, I think AJ would have gotten a good contract with or without Derrick Henry, right? Because now Derrick helps, right? Derrick helps attract attention that allows AJ to be open down the field in play action passing situations. Nobody's disputing that. And AJ's a talented player. But AJ probably would have gotten paid at some point, right? Whether it was here, whether it was in free agency, AJ was going to get a contract because that's just where the market's going. It's not necessarily about how much Derrick Henry helped him, although football is a team sport. So of course these parts are supposed to help one another function. Ryan Tannehill wouldn't have gotten the contract that he got without AJ Brown, right? And without Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry wouldn't have got the contract that he got without Ryan Tannehill and without AJ Brown and without a good offensive line the year that they went to the AFC Championship game. But the salaries, the marketplace goes where these tells you where these price points will be. And then you're operating within that ballpark range, right? So if Tyreek Hill is making 30, okay, then what's an AJ Brown worth? Well, in reality, he's probably worth closer to 20, but he got 25 from a team that was willing to pay him, and it wasn't the Titans, so he asked for a trade. It's not as cut and dry, I think, as you're making it out to be. Although you understand that these parts work in conjunction with one another to the ultimate success of the team. Do you even let's see. Ken Caniff says if this team implodes next season, we'll be drafting another quarterback. We'll see. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen as far as the Titans are concerned. I think it's going to be a fascinating season to cover. Jeremy says Buck wouldn't have gotten a contract without Cousin Andrew. I don't know who Cousin Andrew is. But honestly, I got the contract either way. In fact, I don't know that we didn't. I mean, it's been so busy here lately that we haven't talked about the fact that I got a contract extension from A to Z, and I got a contract from the radio station. So people keep handing me contracts. I'm going to keep taking them as long as just in the way that Derrick Henry should keep taking contracts as long as people hand it to him. I'm going to keep taking every contract that they put in front of me, seeing as it works to my benefit without question. But yeah, very happy to have signed an extension with A to Z Sports that is going to keep me here for the foreseeable future. Lucky for you guys. All right, let's wrap this thing up on a Thursday evening. The radio show tomorrow, we are going to have Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, and we'll talk about it then. We will have Alexi Lalas in studio. He's in town for the Nashville SC Atlanta United match. Alexi Lalas is going to hang out with us, and I think we have a third guest as well. Oh, no, we're going to talk about Malik Willis with Greg Cosell of NFL Films, and that'll be a great time. So have a fantastic evening. I hope to talk to you tomorrow on the radio show. If you don't have time for the radio show, don't worry about it. There's a podcast. There will also be a 615 Sessions podcast in your A to Z Sports podcast feed. Joe Rexrode, Jim Wyatt. We talked about Malik Willis. We talked about Ryan Tannehill. We talked about Derrick Henry and the viability of a contract extension. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Sunday night if I don't talk to you tomorrow. Have a great weekend, guys.